Hello and welcome to the Catholic Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Lucia, and I am so excited to be here with you. This podcast is something that has been placed on my heart for a while now. It's only now coming to fruition because all of the moving pieces in my life have finally come together to bring me here. If you're finding this podcast, you might be finding it at the exact right moment when you need it. And that's my hope for you. This episode, we're going to talk a little bit about my story because that's really what brought me to be here doing the work that I do and finding the connection between faith and fertility. I'm someone who went years without a cycle, 10 years to be exact, and to go from that to then conceiving both of our kids on the first time is not coincidence. It's really a reflection of how powerful this work can be and how faith really does lead you and God really does bring you to the right people at the right moment when you need it. If you're someone who is feeling really lost in your fertility journey, if you're not really sure where to turn or what the next best step is for you, my hope is that this podcast bring you peace, clarity, and options. Options that are aligned with your faith, that are aligned with your moral values, the way that you view life and conception. Okay, where to even begin with my story? There's so many moving parts and moving pieces. The most important thing that I want to point out about my story is that God was always leading me, even when I wasn't really sure where we were going. Most of the time, I wasn't sure where things were going, but God had a plan, and God also has a plan for you. My fertility story really starts back in high school. Why do I say that? Because that's when I got my cycle. I started my cycle later than most of my friends, and automatically I thought, okay, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my body. And there was always that running narrative in my head throughout my life. The reason I share that is because you might be sharing in that too. I want to point that out because what you think about your body does matter. All that to say, I got my period in high school and my body started changing a lot and I got really uncomfortable in my body. High school is also a time where, it's just hard to be a teen back in the day and nowadays even more so. And as my body started shifting and I was getting more uncomfortable, I decided that I was going to go on my first diet. And I did. I lost a lot of weight. I also lost my cycle, my period, my relationship with food, and I really lost myself. And it took 15 years to really regain who I was, heal my body, and heal my relationship with food. I also don't want it to sound like, oh, I've made it, I'm here. No, it's very much what I believe about the human body and in our life is that we're always on this journey and we never fully make it, but we can heal parts of ourselves and also grow closer to God through different life stages. Rewinding back to high school, there I was, had lost a lot of weight, wasn't getting my period, had ruined my relationship with food, and that really dragged on through all of college, which makes me sad now looking back at it because that really robbed me of feeling like my body was working with me. I always felt like my body was against me. Like, why wasn't I cycling? Why me? Why couldn't I feel just as feminine as all the other women? Even though most women were complaining about their cycle, the times that I did get my period, maybe twice where I got my period in a span of 10 years, I was so excited. I was so excited because it felt like, wow, my body's working. Like my body's doing what it was meant to do. I understood from a very foundational place that God created our body to work in a certain way. Even though I was in this state of physiological stress, which we'll talk way more about in this podcast of what that means and what that can look like in different bodies, even though I was in that state, I knew that it was just a state and I knew that there was healing that could happen. I knew that my body was able to cycle on its own. It just needed support. Throughout college, not getting a cycle, having a really unhealthy relationship with food, that stole from my experience of being more social in college, of trying new things. It was really easy for me to be hyper focused on only studying and being physically active because those were two things that I could control. I could put in an amount of energy or input and I would get a result that I wanted. There's obviously beauty in every single challenge. So that led me to be a really good student, and that led me to be very type A and end up graduating with great grades and got into a phenomenal dietetic internship. And after my dietetic internship, got hired immediately in the hospital I was working. So there was a lot of benefits to the struggles that I was facing. The only reason I share that is because now looking back, I can see where like every single thing that we struggle through and every single part of our journey is challenging, but also builds us in a way that allows us to find more of who we are. If there's anything that you have been struggling with or have been challenged by in your life, know that God put that on your heart in your life for a reason. It might be an opportunity for growth. It might be humility. It might be connecting with others. And then seeing now where I'm at, where I get to work with Catholic women, supporting them and healing their relationship with their body. And not only that, but healing aspects of their lifestyle or of their diet or of overall their life that are preventing their body from living in alignment with the way that God created it. To know that I get to be able to do that through the challenges and struggles that I had is so powerful and so grounding. Okay, I kind of get off track because I get really excited. So then let's see where we were. Got a really great dietetic internship, worked as a dietitian in the hospital world for a while. And I was still not getting my cycle. I knew that that wasn't good for my hormones. Even back in high school when I stopped getting my cycle, I remember mom took me to a gynecologist. She was the only person who sat me down and said, you know what? A lot of times when women lose a lot of weight, they can lose their cycle too. Even though I knew she was right, I wasn't in a place to hear it. I was young, and I also was very wrapped into, no, this is what I'm doing and I'm not changing anything. As I got older, even in college and then after college when I was working, I did go to different providers. I even saw different Catholic doctors. Every provider is going to try different things with you, but none of the things that they were recommending felt true and right to me. I really wish that someone would have included me more in my care instead of saying, hey, like, this is what this is showing. Why don't you do this? Why don't we put you on an estrogen patches? Or why don't we trial progesterone? Or why don't we, I get where they're coming from. It's all like, oh, let's see if this helps the body start up. That's where I think there's a big mismatch. Trying all of these different tools when the foundations are broken, when the foundations aren't there. And that's a huge part of what I work on with women is nailing the foundations, because when you have a sturdy foundation, you can build from there. The body can heal from there. A big part of a woman's reproductive cycle and her hormones are the ability to feel safe. And not just safe as in like, oh, I feel safe inside my home. Yes, that is part of it, but it's also safety in a sense of your body's getting enough energy. It's getting enough of what it needs, getting enough sleep, getting enough water. It's not living in this chronic fight or flight state. There's so many different facets to experiencing safety in the body, and a lot of it can be emotional, psychological, physical, all of these things. We'll get into that more throughout the podcast. I just want to point that out because if interventions aren't working for you, those may not be the right interventions for you, or they may not be the right interventions for you at that moment in time, because there's other things that need to be addressed first. And that's a huge part of healing hormones and healing fertility, bringing it back online, is doing the right things in the right order. It does matter. And I'm proof of that. I was even put on birth control for a short period of time, even though that felt so unaligned with me. At that point, I just wanted to have a cycle. Back then, I didn't really understand that birth control doesn't support your natural hormone production. It shuts that down and just gives you the synthetic hormones. It gives you a withdrawal bleed. You can bleed, but it's not a true cycle. Anyway, that was one thing I tried. They ended up finding out that I had an ovarian cyst, which I ended up having removed. One doctor diagnosed me with PCOS, even though I don't have PCOS. I very much had HA, hypothalamic amenorrhea, basically the body not having enough resources in order to be in a fertile state. All that to say, I went on to heal my relationship with food. God really led me to that through leading me to a retreat. I had gone to adoration and prayed about, because I had this feeling I should go. So I went to adoration, I sat there with God and I prayed. And the answer was very clear. He called me to go to that retreat. Everything in my body was like, you need to be there for some reason, you need to go. I went to that retreat, flew for the first time by myself, went to New York, went to that week-long retreat. The first day I was there, met the person that changed my trajectory in my healing journey. It was an individual who had also struggled with disordered eating and eating disorder and had gone to a dietitian in Houston. And I am in Houston. As soon as I got back from that trip, I realized I needed support. I needed help from other providers. Even though I was a dietitian, I decided to seek out help. I met with a dietitian, met with a therapist, healed my relationship with food. 3 months into that journey, I got my cycle back. From 10 years to then just 3 months of working on my relationship with food and my mindset around food in my body, my cycle came back. That shows you how connected those two things are. If you're someone who's like, I've never lost my cycle, that's great. Your relationship with food, your relationship with exercise, your mindset around those things, your mindset around your health, communicate with your body, what state of safety you're in. Those are huge. We never skip those in working with fertility clients. From there, a few years went by. I met my husband. We got married. My cycles were pretty irregular at that point. I was bleeding, but they weren't regular to the point of like, okay, I know exactly when I'm ovulating. I know exactly when I'm going to get my period. They were a little bit off. Sometimes I would go 2 months without a period. Part of our marriage prep was doing NFP classes, and I loved it. I was all about it. When I started charting on a paper chart, I could see my cycle was just confused. My body was a little confused. And again, I was like, is something wrong with my body? Like, why can't I just figure this out? Why can't I just do this? Through that, even just through charting, I gained a lot of awareness of my hormones, what my hormones were doing, which is why it's so important. If you aren't charting your cycle, if you aren't tracking your cycle with an app, with a ring, with a calendar, whatever it is, there's so much information inside of a woman's menstrual cycle, down to, are you spotting before you bleed? Are you spotting mid-cycle? How long is your luteal phase? How long is your follicular phase? Are you having fertile cervical mucus? How many days of that? Like, there's so much information you can gain. And when clients come in to see me, we review all of that, because just from that data, I can gather, okay, they probably have low progesterone. They probably have low estrogen. There's probably some stress going on. There's so much we can tell from that. All that to say, started charting, got really clear on that. And then just being able to see the data of what my body was doing, I started making a few shifts again in my body and in my diet, getting even more relaxed around food, including even more foods in my diet. At that point we were married, so I wanted to make really amazing, satisfying meals, and a little bit of greens and tomatoes with like very small amount of protein was just not cutting it. I wanted to make awesome meals for my husband and for myself. I think coming into marriage in that way of like wanting to honor my body, wanting to create this like nurturing, nourishing environment for our family really also helped take another step in my healing journey. And then, we got married in 2019, 2021, we decided we should start trying for a baby. I had been tracking, we had been avoiding on the days I knew to avoid. The first time that we tried to get pregnant, we got pregnant. We found out on Valentine's Day, which was so special. It was right before the Houston freeze. If any of you are from Houston and remember 2021, the big freeze, we found out the day before that freeze. I remember the moment when we had gotten the positive test. I came out of the bathroom. We were so excited. We were celebrating with our dog at the time. And I remember sitting on the couch and just looking at my husband, Brett, and saying, I did it. Like, I actually did it. And there was this sense of accomplishment, but also God really brought me into that moment. He had been working on my heart and working with me through working all of these challenges in my body to get me to that very moment. I had no idea that I was going to be able to get pregnant. I remember when I was going through years of not having a cycle, I almost tricked myself into believing that maybe I didn't want to be a mom. Maybe it'd be okay if I'd never had kids, because I had no idea if my cycle would ever come back. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know what that would, kind of side effects that would have on my body. It was such a gift from God to just reaffirm that everything that I had done, He had walked me through. He was going to be right there with us through all of it. I share that story because I believe that God created our body so perfectly, so intelligently. And you may have moments in your life where you think your body's broken, or you think there's no other options for you. And maybe the world is telling you that you have to do IVF, or you have to do who knows what else. If that doesn't align with you morally, because you know your heart and you know your beliefs, I want you to know that there are so many other options to support you in conceiving naturally and to get your body to a place where you can get pregnant and you can grow your family and you can do it in a way that's aligned with you, that's aligned with your faith, and that will honestly strengthen and shape not only your relationship with yourself, your relationship with God, but also your relationship with your significant other and all of the future kids that you're going to have. I want you to feel seen and to feel heard. And I'd invite you, if any of this has resonated with you, please stick around. We're going to be talking about so many amazing topics to help walk you through where to start with your fertility journey if you're struggling. What are some things to think about? How does functional nutrition even tie in with fertility, even tie in with faith? We're going to be diving deep and it's going to be amazing. And I just pray that God blesses every single woman who's listening. And if you're listening with your significant other, I pray that God blesses you together. I just know that this podcast is going to find the right women it needs to at the right time. If you loved hearing little tidbits about my story, I have written an entire book about my journey with eating, food, healing. And the really special part was as soon as I finished writing that book is when we found out I was pregnant with our first. God works in really beautiful ways. I'll drop the link to that book below if you're needing a read that is going to connect with you on a very deep soul, feminine, faith-filled level. That is your read. Subscribe to this podcast. I can't wait to chat with you guys more, and I will see y'all soon.